and other teachers. On Thursdays at 4:30 p.m., our venerable monks conduct the Protector Puja for smooth journeys, successive interviews, medical treatments, new businesses, and other new endeavors. The intermediate series continues in November with Class 5 on the topic of Vajrasattva meditation, the path of purification and inner transformation. This class will be taught by Geshe Lobsang Tenzin La, while Geshe Pendela is out of town. This once a month 5-class series is held on the second day of the month to November via Zoom. There will be a offered by His Excellent Eminence Gonsa Rinpoche on the morning of November 8th attending the Intermediate Series Class 5. The empowerment will be offered in person as well as online. Those who have received the Vajrasattva empowerment are permitted to join in the weekly Sunday Vajrasattva practice sessions at 9:30 a.m. As a reminder, please do not park on the grass along the driveway or behind the building. Additionally, please do not park at John Lewis Elementary School while school is still in session, or in the school lot access through the gate next to our property, as the gate will be locked and you will be locked out. Or you won't be able to get your car out. Sorry, that happened before. So overflow parking, it's available via Skyline Drive entrance to the elementary school. You may park in the right side lot and walk to our site from there. Information of all of those events can be found in the lobby and on our website at drepung.org. If anyone is interested to volunteer, please see Michael or one of the volunteers out there. If you are interested in becoming a member to support our ongoing programs and take advantage of benefits like discounts on courses and retreats, applications are available in the library. You can also register online. There is a donation box near the entrance of this room. Your generous support help us to continue to offer programs and services like this to our Atlanta community and to those around the world through our online platforms. Now, please stand as we invite our teacher, Geshe Lobsang La, to come in for tonight's talk, and enjoy. Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening to those joining virtually also. So, Geshe Pendera, as you just heard, he is visiting his friends and community in Nepal for next 6 weeks. So I will be here for 6 Tuesdays. For Tuesday evenings, the talks will focus on the 8 verses of training the mind by Geshe Chekawa. 8 verses in 6 weeks. So we will focus mostly one stanza, one verse per week. But if it resonates, there is a homework to practice. So if it doesn't resonate, forget about it. You can stand in the middle of the talk, leave. It's okay. Because time is precious. You have very precious time, and you don't want to waste it. But if it does resonate, then I would request you to practice it. This week, whatever we cover, next week we'll come back with some reflections. Is that okay? Yes, okay. That's good. So, I started doing this here back in 1991. That's how old I am. 1991. Tuesday happened to be in May, I think it was in May 1991 when we started the Drepung Loseling here in Atlanta. It was on the full moon of the Vaishak, the Buddha's, month of Buddha's enlightenment, called the Vaishak Sakatawa in Tibetan. And that's when I started first. That's the beginning of Loseling in Atlanta, in someone's apartment. Yeah, and Rincho, she offered to gather. I was a student at Emory. Actually, I have come here at the request of some people, to my monastery. I was a monk then. I'm not a monk anymore, but I was a monk then. And they gave a small piece of land to the monastery in North Georgia. That land is still there in Minor Bluff, in the Blue Ridge Mountains. Chris knows that. Minor Bluff, like the Tim knows that. We have been many times. The land is still there, but the couple who donated this piece of land to the monastery, wanted the monastery to send someone to start teaching. So that's how I ended up in Atlanta back in 1991, and started weekly teachings on Tuesdays, and it had to be done on an auspicious day, and the Sakatawa, the full moon, in the 4th month, lunar month, in Tibetan calendar is considered that's the month when Buddha became fully awakened, enlightened. So that's how it started, and then for many, many years. But in the recent years, I've been traveling and got a little busier, and so Tuesdays, I don't think I've been here for at least a year or two. so let me refresh my memory what we do here when we do these Tuesday things. I think we do some chanting, right? Okay. In the past, we used to have a chant master from among the participants. Do we have chant master? Do we have that? Do you do that, or Geshe Pende leads the chanting? Okay, so then let me do that then. We will do a brief chanting, and it's for hour and 15 minutes, right? Hour and 15 minutes. We will do that. So let's start with the mantra, Tadyatha Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgati Buddhi Soha. This is a very special mantra. It's literally means, Tadyatha in Sanskrit means it is thus. It's a Gate Gate, gone, gone. Gate, Gate. Paragate, gone beyond, gone far or gone beyond. Parasamgati Buddhi Soha means Parasamgati, completely gone. Bodhi means enlightened, Soha, so be it. So, like mantras have to, the meaning need to be kind of put together in a proper way. So what that means is that it is thus, thus like all the Buddhas of the past, all the beings who became fully awakened, who attained their full potential, following their footstep, we're saying that tadyata as it is thus, that gate gate, gone, as they have gone beyond, completely gone beyond, into the Bodhi, means full awakening. So be it, that we will follow that path. Gone beyond, that it is referred to, gone beyond what? From a state of our ordinary state of where we are let's say, caught in obsessions, the short-term obsessions to this life, obsessions alone, kind of gone meaning transcending, being able to let go of that kind of tendency to just obsess with name, fame, and so forth of now. Gone beyond, obsession to the, next life am I going to be in heaven instead of in the bad life, if we believe in, because Buddhists believe in afterlife. So, gone beyond, that even be from that obsession to next life, what would that, giving that? Gone, too gone. Gone beyond means beyond the samsara, the very state of our the cycle of suffering that is rooted in our ignorance, misconception, the fundamental misconception of conceiving ourselves as separate from, existing as fixed, independent entity separate from the rest, or the existing its own right. That is ignorance, the gone beyond into that. When one is free from that, that's where the lasting happiness, nirvana, is. But that alone is not alone. It's not the completely gone. Complete gone is into the full awakening. You can go beyond the samsara, but full awakening of the Buddhahood is that not only what is referred to as the obscuration to liberation, but obscuration to the omniscience, knowledge itself, gone completely beyond. That is what is the Bodhi, the full awakening is. We set the intention in this, or seek the inspiration to walk that path, to transcend our narrow graspings to now, to the future, to the very I, to go beyond, to the very obscurations, so that we can be fully enlightened, to be able to help other beings. We will talk about that, why we need to become fully enlightened. But that's so this is what it is, like that. Then we recite these four immeasurables. That aspiration is one thing, we have to, the aspiration, just wishing is not going to lead us there. We have to come to making those inner changes from love, compassion, empathetic joy, to impartiality, equanimity. So cultivating, that's four immeasurables, that's what it is. So let's recite this. Tadyata gate gate para samgate bodhi soha. Tadyata gate para samgate bodhi soha. Tadyata gate 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 para gate para sam gate bodhi so tadhyayata gate gate para gate para sam gate bodhi so tadhyayata gate gate para gate para sam gate bodhi so tadhyayata gate gate para gate para sam gate bodhi so tadhyayata gate gate para gate para sam gate bodhi so tadhyayata gate gate para gate para sam gate bodhi so. May all beings have a happiness. May they be free from suffering. May they find the joy that has never known suffering. May they be free from attachment and hatred. May all beings have happiness. May they be free from suffering. May they find the joy that has never known suffering. May they be free from attachment and hatred. May all beings have happiness. May they be free from suffering. May they find the joy that has never known suffering. May they be free from attachment and hatred. Thank you for joining in the chanting. You have beautiful voices. So, as I mentioned, that for these 6 weeks, we're going to focus on this short but very profound text. Not so much to understand as a theory, but more as practice, something that we can apply in our own lives to not only to make our lives a little bit more, joyous, but also make meaningful. Meaningful. How can we make our lives meaningful? Is it the science tells us that individuals who have meaning and purpose in life, you find them more happy, more healthy, the greater quality of life, finding purpose and meaning. Purpose and meaning, as the psychologists explain, has to do with having certain goals that transcend narrow personal interest. It's not about not having personal interest, but something that transcends narrow personal interest. Narrow personal interest is grounded in selfishness, in extreme individualism. Not individualism, extreme individualism, where what matters is myself, not others. That kind of extreme individualism is detrimental for our well-being. What is opposite of that? What is the grounding for meaning, the purpose? That's something that transcends. It's altruism. The more compassionate heart, compassionate look. Something that where we find it really meaningful to do something to make a difference, along with our own, for our own well-being, but make a difference for someone, whether it's just your child that you are rearing, or your students, or your patient, your clients, your neighbors, or someone that you may not even know, or maybe make this world that we live in make a little bit better. As individually we can't make that totally, but as long as there is a intention, that is, to contribute to something more positive. That kind of, that is what is at the heart of this text. In mind training, like 8 verses of training the mind, Tibetan word Lo-Jong, it comes from 2 words. Lo means mind, Jong is the training. Of course, Jong has several connotations in Tibetan tradition, but it basically has to do with, you can train, like training in some skills, it is familiarizing, to Jong is to practice, like where you go to play a music, guitar or something, you practice, familiarize, like that process. That's what it's about, cultivation. That's something that you are cultivating. Jong is to cultivate some positive qualities, positive habits, behaviors, and like that, or in terms of the mental attitudes, and so forth. Jong, Tibetan word for train, here translated as a training, it also carries the meaning of purifying. Jong, it connotes purification also, because when some positive transformation that you are cultivating, it means that you are clearing the certain unhealthy habits of your mind, attitudes as well. So basically, the mind training, in the Buddhist tradition, it's a genre of literature in Buddhist tradition known as Lo-Jong, training the mind. Of course, all the teachings of the Buddha, Buddhists talk about Buddha taught 84,000 heaps of teachings, not necessarily 84 titles. It's a kind of poetic way of saying, as many problems there are, Buddha taught antidotes, remedies for those. So 84,000 is just a way to say many, like countless, like that, 84,000. I mean, of course, there is a way to classify it, from the afflictive emotions, so ignorance, hatred, obsessive attachment, each one, and then combination, and then from each one, to kind of making it, to make 84,000 would be 21,000 each, and then there's a way to kind of thinking about that. But basically, what it is that Buddha taught, in his 45-year teaching career, after he attained Samyak Sambodhi, full awakening. He was 35 then, and he died like 80, 81. That's so full 45 years of teaching, constantly traveling on foot. He gave many teachings. Those are compiled after his passing, and then what's referred to as the Tripitaka, 3 baskets, 3 collection of the teachings. All of those teachings have to do with training the mind. Because in the Buddhist tradition, remember, this is not to say that external conditions don't matter. Of course matter. That's condition. If we don't have food, we will starve to death. If we don't have clean water, we can get disease, and no medicine, and so forth and so on. All this, and systems need to be also, created. The more democratic, system is, more conducive for the well-being for the people living in there than the more autocratic and the societies and like that. Generally speaking, I don't know what's happening right now. Generally speaking, it's true. I mean, the system, whether in an organization, the policies and so forth, these are all matter. But at the end of the day, the inner, our own attitudes, our own behaviors, how we respond to people, our own ups and down situations in life, they not only, absolutely, they make a difference to you, individual, like that. But that also makes a difference in the environment around you, whether in your family, at your workplace, or in the world, like that. We do create these ripple effects. A home can become a heaven if the two couple and living with harmoniously, with love, the understanding, without judging, without cruelty, and like that. That home is a beautiful home. The children growing will flourish there. A home can become like a hell if the two people living under that roof are just constantly going at each other with every way to hurt and like that. That's where that same environment, it becomes toxic. The children growing there, can't suffer, like that. I think in that toxic state, that how we treat our children, adversely, that can make it deep scar, deeply, affect the children. At workplace, same thing, how we interact with our colleagues. So, mind is such a powerful, resource that we have, that can be such a tool for destruction or for well-being. And at the end of the day, individually for us, we may not have as much agency to make a difference, individually, to make a big difference like that. But no one else is going to change your mind. You have to do that. The greatest treasure that we have is our own mind. If we can train our mind, if we can cultivate our mind in our attitudes, the emotions, our perspectives, in certain way that is conducive for well-being, that makes us that promotes greater well-being in us. So, of course, all the Buddha's teachings are like that, but this particular group of teachings, particularly known as Lo-Jong, it's a term, made kind of more popular in Tibet, the Tibetan word Lo-Jong. It's not that the Buddha's teachings all have that. You trace it in the Buddha's teachings and the great masters of the past, like particularly like the great master like Shantideva. But in Tibet, a group of teachings that carry this profound kind of inspirational tone that, and these teachings were initially passed down in Tibet from kind of not in a public, from student to the teacher to student, in a what may be called the oral manner, sometimes referred to as kind of the secret, meaning that not like that this is something to keep secret from some others, but the teachings, it's something that when you are talking, we are receiving from someone saying that this is you need to do, it is quite radical. It's asking for a quite radical transformation, radical approach, radical from more self-focused to other-focused. That is what the altruism means. Altruism has to do with, bringing focus, other-oriented, other-centered, other-focused, like the doctor focusing on the patient, teacher focusing on the student, parents focusing on the children, their children, like the other focus. Normally, we are, by evolution, if you believe in science, or if you believe in Buddhism, Buddha's teachings, or for that matter, other great spiritual traditions, I think there is a general recognition that our kind of we have innate tendency to be quite narrow in our perspectives, tendency to be quite self-focused, even though that's not our fundamental nature. That, like the Native American story illustrates, when the grandfather tells his grandchild that in his heart there are two wolves fighting. One is very, very aggressive, the other one is very understanding and kind. And the child asks which one wins. And the grandfather says that the one that you feed to. Right? The idea here is that we do have this innate dispositions that is, evolved through our evolutionary needs, kind of imperatives. We have both to self-preserve and to be of help to others. Both altruism and selfishness are deep in our deep dispositions. That studies show that studies will show that how little babies without even at the 3 months old are oriented towards kindness, kind acts. But then you can also see that by age 5 that you can see that there is a more of a tendency that comes to keep things for oneself. That. Then comes the education, the civilization, that by age 7 or so, because parents said that, no, give to your sister also, share that, not learn about kind of being more pro-social. And then, so depending on what nurtured us, what circumstances, that we can end up feeding to the more selfish disposition or to more healthy dispositions, more compassionate, kind. Right? Which wolf we want to feed to. Now, the reason we want to feed to the kind wolf in our chest, in our heart, or in other words, we want to nurture the more compassionate, more kind disposition, is that because we know from our personal experience, we know from the common sense, looking at around, science tells us, as the spiritual traditions have told millennia, that the kindness, being more kind, being other-oriented, is good, better for our health and well-being, our lives. It promotes more joy, like that. So therefore, the Lo-Jong teachings, when it's asking this radical transformation from more self-centered to other-centered, other-oriented, compassion, it's not easy, like that. So that's why that if it is just writing a book or giving a talk, just as talking about philosophy theory, it's one thing. But if you are going to be, if a teacher is talking to a student, and to instructing, to being other-oriented, is how you do that. Giving some instruction in a manner that inspires the child, the student, and like that. This is what was done in a quite student kind of teacher to student up until several centuries in Tibet, when these teachings, when the great master Atisha visited, then this teaching was not put down into the writing to for the public discourse and like that. So that's this is what I wanted to say, that because this teaching asks for us for quite a radical choice, that radical choice. That is to be actually it comes from a line of teaching that's referred to as equalizing and exchanging self with others. Equalizing and exchanging self with others. This is a particular approach to cultivating what's called the Bodhicitta, that the deep resolve, genuine resolve to pursue one's full awakening solely to help all beings, not just my children, not just people who are like me, not just people who are nice to me, but all beings. That's what the Bodhicitta is, the altruistic aspiration or the intention to become fully awakened to help all beings. That means that it's the great compassion, unbiased compassion, extended compassion. Unbiased compassion is what is, motivating, is what leading one to see that if I want to help all beings become free from their suffering, like as we were reciting, may all beings have happiness, may all beings be free from suffering. If we, not just aspiring, but if we said, may I help all beings have happiness, may I help all beings with their relief from suffering, and like that. For me to do that, for me to just really, how can I do this if I'm myself, am caught in the kind of chains of my own afflictions and ignorance, lack of my knowledge and like that. How can I be able to help all others? So that's why you see that becoming awakened, fully awakened. Not that's because it's a wonderful thing. I will be, the great being, the omniscient, the Buddha, I will be so important. Not like that. That's the last thing. That's not even in the equation. The sole reason for a bodhisattva, somebody seeking this, is that compassion so great for all beings that I want to become fully capable, able on my part to help as effectively as I can. So that it's like, if you want to be a doctor, heart surgeon, you may have had some family members who have gone through some, condition with heart disease and like that, lost and like that. So you are super motivated as a student. This is what I want to help people, not to suffer from heart attacks like that, heart illness. But just, merely wanting is not enough. What does the student do? Go about acquiring knowledge, the skills, the tools, go through this, many years of medical, training and like that. Motivated by that compassion for people to not suffer from heart disease, to alleviate that, to help with them. But to do that, he or she is seeking to be a doctor with full, greater understanding, so they can, more effectively help. That's the kind of the Bodhicitta is like that. So therefore, in this kind of radical attitude, placing others before oneself, that's exchanging oneself with others. It has to do with first equalizing oneself with others, meaning that as much as we cherish ourselves, to cherish others as well, as much as we hold ourselves as precious, holding others as precious, as like that. That is what equalizing has to do. It's not like equalizing I'm you and you are me, not like that. But generally, ordinarily, we put ourselves at first and the others as second. Neglect others, my well-being or the food or the whatever. That's generally how we do. But the Lo-Jong teachings tell that if we really want to cultivate this other-oriented attitude, that is so good, not just for others, for us. Like the Dalai Lama, when he says that if you want to be happy, practice compassion. If you want others to be happy, practice compassion. This comes from this kind of line of thinking. That is what the science is showing also, right? Like that. How do we go about making others as well-being as priority, and others are, reversing that. First part is to kind of equalizing. How do we equalize? In the Lo-Jong, Lamrim, in these teachings, there are very systematic ways presented to do that, and that is one way to do that is to appeal to our common humanity, shared human condition, just like me. others also have desire to be happy, have desire to be free from suffering, just like me. Just like me, others have basic needs for food, basic needs, physical needs, just like me. You have that too. To really taking to heart that the other person or the people, whether it's a friend or a stranger, or maybe even somebody who is quite nasty. If we can connect to their humanity, connect to their human condition, in terms of humans, but this goes beyond humans, animals, anyone who has the capacity to feel and has the feeling, and they have biological needs, they have emotional needs, they have social needs. Just like us, if they are not met with that, they suffer just like us. When they're met with that, it helps. They feel, healthy, flourish, just like me. Appealing to that common humanity is very important, the practicing common humanity. But then, there's not only seeing others just like me, in that we want to be happy, want to be free from suffering, in that just like I have my vulnerabilities, limitations, others have limitations also. Is it making any sense? Okay, yeah. So this is what I think that, Lo-Jong teaching is asking us to equalize, meaning that see the humanity in others, their needs, their vulnerabilities. If we can truly train our mind in this way, in this perspective, in this understanding, this way of relating to others, then the gap between me and others shrink, like that. In some way that we can see in others in us. That's when the scientists talk about how identification is the key portal to empathy. Identification. When we identify with someone, that's where someone, I like to say that, they are one of us, right? One of us, they become in our inner circle. We are evolved to have notice others' situation matter when someone is one of us in our inner circle. And that is what equalizing has to do. But then to exchange, this part is asking for this radical approach to actually not only equalizing, equal importance, but to cultivate something that, like those of you who are parents, that you have this first-person experience yourself when you are a newborn baby, or when is born. I mean, the mothers have been carrying even before that, but fathers, when newborn baby comes, how precious that child is for you. That often we hear, if the mothers, the parents, the child is struggling, they said that, if only, I could have this, my child be free from this illness, and I will happily have this on myself. And that's where that exchange is. It's also natural. It's also in our biology. The social beings, we have evolved to have those kind of affiliative, instincts that deep in our hearts and mind, for narrow, but for those who are very close ones. But how do we expand that kind of cherishing, that kind of warm-heartedness, that kind of tenderness towards others? I mean, by now, if you are feeling that, oh, what is he talking about, just so, and the sort of unrealistic, that's why these teachings were passed down, secretly, because you can see that you could see that, oh, this person is just totally unrealistic, like that, just. But if we can, if the many people in the past is what we want to take as evidence, then yeah, so many beings in the past have practiced this to make little by little, not overnight. Maybe it will take whole life, maybe several lives, but to see the possibility that yes, I can see all beings as I feel for my child, where child's well-being becomes more important than my own well-being. That not that I don't need my well-being, but there is this exchange in the sense, priority becomes priority. How do we go about doing that? This is what the first verse here is. By thinking all sentient beings, and here it's not just human beings, right? This is a radical, it's asking for a very, 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 radical kind of change. By thinking all sentient beings meaning that beings who have the capacity to feel, but who are not enlightened, that word called. By thinking of all sentient beings more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel. For accomplishing the highest aim, I will always hold them dear. So, here you see that it's an aspirational kind of, its verse is written as aspirational for a reason that otherwise it will come across, like I will hold, all beings as dear, it is not something that I can do now, but, it is aspirational. I will, may I always hold others, as more dear than the wish-fulfilling jewel. The wish-fulfilling jewel is, again, it's a cultural thing in India, in Asia, in Tibet, that are primarily coming from the ancient Indian kind of cultural beliefs, and that is that there's something called wish-fulfilling jewel, Chintamani. That such a jewel, if you have it, if somebody has it, and then if you make wish for ordinary resources, the food and money and so forth and so on, the belief is that if you have the wish-fulfilling jewel, it's so precious that those ordinary wishes are fulfilled. That, if we had something like that, wouldn't that be great? How precious would that be? How precious we will hold that, right? Like if there's something that we want to be healthy, we want to be young, no wrinkles, no gray hair, and then no receding hairs, and all those things, and then, enough money to eat, and that have the delicious today. I want to eat Indian food tomorrow, Chinese food, like that. All this become available. If something like that, how precious we hold that, right? We can see that how precious we hold, even like if we have some condition, health condition, diabetes or like that, And then you have the diabetic medicine if you have to take, if you are at a point where you have to take diabetic medicine, otherwise you can really get ill. How precious that you will hold that medicine, right? Here it's saying that sentient beings, for us, beings around us, not just human beings, they are more precious than such a wish-fulfilling jewel. Because from sentient beings, we derive all our needs, all our benefits. And this is what we usually fail to recognize. That if you think that we are alive today, we have food, we have clothing, we have job, we have education, like the way of living. How that, became possible? Without other beings, without the parents or other caregivers, would we have been here today? A human baby cannot survive without others' care. Some animals, they do, like the turtles, they hatch, and then they have to find their way to the ocean. Human babies, particularly, that if we were born and then nobody attended to us, do you think that we would be here today? Absolutely not. Somebody feeding us, milking us, and providing us the love, the touch, the embracing. If without that, if we were even just given food like that, like maybe in the, what happened in the Romania, like in those orphanages, that there was a kind of a certain belief at some point, the behavioral psychologists believed that, you should not touch your babies, that it makes them weaker. You need to, give milk from the bottle, but not touch like that. Not show affection. It makes them weaker. That was not long ago. I mean, that was the thinking that promoted by the behavioral psychologist. And then you can see, in those kind of situations, what happens. Like the Romanian orphanages, where they, were not touching, just giving all the food and that they need the milk and all those things. But the mortality came to 100% in many of those orphanages. Like that. Human affection is so important for us, our immune system, for our well-being, our psychological well-being. And that's why the adverse childhood experiences, I mean, the studies, there are so many studies done to date to showing that childhood abuse and neglect, how that predisposes children, for their adulthood problems, health problems, emotional problems, unable to connect with others, and all kinds of, adversity, even like mortality, like if you had, 6 or more of certain adverse condition out of 10 days at least, you had like, over like 1,000, over 1,000%, more likely to die younger than those who are raised with affection and like that. So the basic premise here is that we can attune to the kindness of others, intended or unintended. If we can hold precious the wish-fulfilling jewel if we get from there, or medicine that keeps us healthy, that if we when needed, how precious. Why not recognize that in other beings, that who have been in our lives, our family members, relatives, our own co-workers, our own mentors, teachers, but also been the people in the community who are, making possible the food, gas is there, electricity is there, roads are kept, where we can drive. The society itself is kept safe by our law enforcement people and like that. When you can really take that in, you will feel differently. There will be a sense of gratitude, tenderness that will unfold. So that's why here, the Langre Tangpa, Geshe Langre Tangpa, who wrote this, he is in it's Tao Te Chebar Tsimbar shows in Tibetan. That may I always cherish them, dear, like that, cherish, hold them dear. That's how we do that, is by attuning to, appealing to this, our reality, where everything we have, every comfort, every need, physical, spiritual, emotional, social, professional, all these, they come from others. Without others, there's no we, no I, without others. And that's what is the practice. Shall we do a little practice here? Yes? We will do this little practice. Homework for you is to take a few time, if you can, if possible, take few times as you, before going to bed, or it's during the day when you have a few moments where you can't, have reflect, just journal, write down, a few things that where, how, what do I have, who is making a difference in my life. We will do a practice so that many of you are already familiar probably, but if you are not familiar, I will guide you in a brief practice. And then from there, for you, the practice is to take, between now and next week, if this is something that resonates, take a few minutes, 5-10 minutes. That's all I ask, to do a little journaling. When you are journaling, you can really, reflect on this. And then as you have journaled, then that, sit with that, what feeling comes with that, flow with that. Just connect with the feeling that comes with that. I will say this before we do the practice, brief practice, that when someone benefits us, even just give a nice, genuine smile, in that. Do you notice that we smile back? Not consciously, no, I should smile back, not like that. Spontaneous. We are built in such ways that when someone shows a genuine kind of liking, smile, it automatically, our brain, our nervous system also responds with that sense of joy that get expressed in our own smile. I like that. There is a certain warm feeling that unfolds. Animals have that too. That at Emory University, there is the primate center called the Yerkes Primate Center. Franz Duval was the director of that, a primatologist, extraordinary. His studies show that after many, many observations, these bonobos, this primate family, they tend to share their food with, when they get the food, if they end up with big pumpkin, all the other in the community are there. If you those who end up, the first thing that they share with us, that somebody who groomed them earlier, who comforted them earlier. That is what. If we can be more conscious of the benefit we receive from others, intentionally or unintentionally, and notice, what shifts that take place in you, how it changes the way that how you feel about others. There is a sense of connection also. The benefits are multi-level. This sense of tenderness there is a connection. Connection is the antidote for our loneliness, isolation. With the loneliness, there's also so many problems today. So you can see that how this can really work, not as a hypothetical, a kind of mysterious thing. It's a science-based, it's a real evidence-based, a real experience-based, our own experience. So, essence of first verse, towards that radical transformation from self-centered to other-centered, is about making visible others' kindness, so that we can have that more a warm feeling towards others. So let's do it just briefly. Let's do this practice. I would like you to, if possible, to have a little taste of this. So please take a moment to just find a comfortable posture, to sit for a few moments. Feel free to stretch if you notice any tensions in your shoulders, tightness in chest or neck and so forth. Just feel free to stretch or roll your shoulders or stretch your body to soften that. And then placing the body with the back upright, just letting it settle. Our eyes can be closed or slightly open, cast down vacantly. Just take a few deep breaths, just for initial settling, just taking a couple of deep breaths with fresh air, rejuvenating air, breathing out any tiredness, any feeling of exhaustion, fatigue, or for that matter, worries, agitations. With the outgoing breath, just let it go. And then take a moment to see what we really want for ourselves. When all that is said and done, how important it is for us to be healthy. And a life, a fulfilled life, joyous. How important it is for us to not be struggling with illnesses, misfortunes, conflicts, emotional, physical illnesses and so forth. How important it is for us to have this environment around us, our own family environment, our workplace environment, our community, the society, this world. We want this to be in conflict, wars, just where it's unsafe for everyone, or more harmonious and peaceful, more cooperative and trusting of each other. And then here, take a moment to see, when do you feel yourself a certain degree of joy, the comfort, a sense of safety, a sense of peace? Is there a moment that you can recall? perhaps in a certain moment of vulnerability, certain moment of need of certain things. Can you recall how someone's kindness was so helpful for us in that moment? Perhaps even just someone not judging, but just without even saying something, just sitting with us, seeing us without judging. When we were going through certain struggles. Certain lack of certain needs, when someone saw that and provided us, emotional or physical. Just take a moment to, if you can, bring to mind such a moment as vividly as you can, where and when, under what circumstances this particular moment of kindness, of nurturance, nourishing, unfolded for us. Who was this person? What were we going through then? What was that act of kindness that brought us relief, comfort, joy? Do you recall any expression on such a person's face or body language? If something was said, what was the tone of that voice that put you at peace and comfort? What was conveyed that was so helpful? In what manner that was conveyed? What were our own feelings? What was our feeling towards such a person then? And for that matter, as we recall now, what has been our feeling of that moment, of that person? Just bring the attention to your chest to see any shift in your sensation, feelings you notice. Is there a certain warm tenderness? And in that tenderness, do you feel a little bit more safe and comfort? Just take a moment that how many such moments that we depend on. If we can take even one thing that we depend on, like tea, if you are a tea drinker, coffee in the morning, each day that you start, how such a thing comes from how many people. Perhaps we can take this first step here to take few moments as we go about each day to make visible, to connect to a few more beings through these needs that we have, that we enjoy, food, or clothing, or other resources that we have. In that way, to connect with others with a sense of tenderness, warmth. Please take a moment to recognize that this is a skill. We can practice, it's a training, we can train to make more and more of such moments visible, to let this tenderness grow, expand, deepen. And in that tenderness, in that sense of connection, how we can see that how it is so beneficial for us, for our relationships, and how we can be, in some ways, a catalyst for that well-being for others, making our lives meaningful. So let's take a moment to dedicate any goodness that unfolds as we become a little bit more attuned to the kindness of others. A little bit deepen our own tenderness towards others. Let's dedicate this towards the greater good, for peace, healing, harmony and happiness of all beings. And let's conclude by setting an intention. This brief lens that through it we saw our interdependence through the needs of our needs and so forth on others, that how we saw. Let's take this insight beyond this question, beyond this meditation question, into our everyday life. As we go about, perhaps from time to time, just take a moment to bring to mind that whatever thing that we're enjoying, how that's made possible by a few others, that we can actually, not in an abstract, but actually can have actual awareness of what profession, what kind of people and so forth. And sometimes it may be taking a little bit more time to formally, to reflect and journal, to notice then how it shifts our own feelings, moods, emotions, our own quality of life and relationships with others. Thank you. Thank you so much. So, is the homework clear? Yes? You're going to do the homework? Yes? Okay, so when we come back next Tuesday, we will take a few moments to check in, share some of the experiences that you have had. Is that okay? Okay. Thank you. Have a good evening.